From a pure media management message standpoint, he was there to talk about infrastructure, and suddenly we're talking about Charlottesville again, because that's all the media cares about right now.
Well, from a media communication standpoint, we've seen time and time again the team trying to control this president. We saw that over the course of the campaign as well, unable to. You can tell that the president has a lot of built-up frustration over the course of the past couple of days for the criticism for his handling of the Charlottesville tragedies there. And so you saw him really unleash that frustration out at the media, who were rightfully so asking him questions about his thoughts process about this critical event that has gripped the nation. And so you definitely sense that there.
Madison, did he do a good enough job there defending himself against the media? I mean, at one point, he actually pulled his original statement that he had with him and said, look, this is what I said. I said it was hatred. I said it was violence, and that there is no place for this kind of bigotry in our country. But he kept saying over and over again he needed to get the facts before he made those kinds of accusations about specific groups. Was that enough of a defense?
Yeah, I think he did a great job today, and I think what we have to remember is he's a leader. He's someone who sees the full picture. He's patient, and he's not afraid, to call people out who are being unfair and who are being hypocritical, and I think that's what he did with his answers today. Going back to what you said earlier, yeah, we're going back to Charlottesville, but President Trump is someone, who is looking at the bigger picture, and he understands that there's not just one issue that's important at any given time. There's a lot of pressing issues that are going to be facing the White House and facing this nation, and that goes back to his agenda. He's continuing to focus on health care, tax reform, infrastructure. He's hitting on all of the things that are affecting the American people, not just one thing as the media wants to continue to hit on.
Christy, the media really wanted to continue to hit on this one here today, and we did see in some ways the classic Donald Trump that we saw on the campaign trail. Well, he wasn't afraid to take him on, and he fired back. Do you think the strategy was effective, or does this just sink him further as far as the media is concerned?
I mean, he went off the rails. I don't think it's the media's fault that the conversation kept going. To be honest, I believe that the media kept asking the same question because they were trying to give him every opportunity to say what, frankly, not just as members of the media or PR people, just as Americans, we want to hear our president say something moral and good and say that we're better than Nazis. That shouldn't be a high bar. I believe that's why they kept asking, giving him opportunity after opportunity, and he wouldn't do it. The best thing he would say.
Asking him, or is it about something else, which is once again back to this identity politics theme that the left has played over and over again?
No, I mean, well, they're interconnected, right? I mean, we're stunned. I am stunned. Again, not just as somebody who is liberal, but just, again, as an American, that the best he could do was say that the people who were not Nazis who were there had some problems, too, because they didn't get a permit. Are you kidding me?
No,
are you kidding me?
That's not what he was saying, Christy.
Christy, I'm a girl from Charlottesville, and I thought he did a very good job condemning the hatred and violence. I guess it wasn't as quick as the left wants it to have been said.
That was the problem.
But why are we so divisive?
Christy, let Heather finish her thought, and then we'll get you back in there. Go ahead,
why
Heather.
are we so divisive? Let's start, moving in the right direction.
Why are Nazis so divisive? Is that your question?
No, not Nazis so divisive. I mean the media and the questions that they were asking him, the left-wing media at the press conference that was about infrastructure. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, it was a press conference about infrastructure, but he opened it up, and clearly this has been dominating the news cycle, so they went right back to the well because this is what is working for them. This is what is selling for them, Heather.
Yes, it gets ratings, that's for sure.
Let me ask you about this, because the CEO, Caitlin, of Walmart came out and announced that he was leaving the council today. He becomes the fourth CEO to do so on the heels of three others, Merck, Kevin Plank from Under Armour, all of these folks saying, okay, in light of Charlottesville, we're leaving the manufacturing council. He took that question there on the CEO of Walmart, and he really went back to how he could grow the economy, how the market's been doing so much better. And then, of course, at the tail end of the news conference, we heard him talking about the key to race relations is actually the economy, and it is jobs. Is there something to that?
Well, Well, it would be perhaps if the president kept on message. I really take issue with the fact that the media is driving this. The president has had multiple opportunities to talk about his agenda, but time and time again we see on Twitter, and the fact that he did take all of these questions willingly and independently shows that he wanted to talk about this issue and how he feels about this issue. And it's not just the left that's been critical of Donald Trump. It's Republicans in Congress who, right after the Charlottesville events, came out and said that they wanted the president to take a tougher stance, and a lot of them did end up welcoming the second round of that statement. So I think we have to be fair here that this is a big issue and something that is concerning to kind of a bipartisan group, and people are looking to the President of the United States to discuss how he feels about this as the leader of the country.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to it in that he knew, Madison, that he would get asked those questions. I mean, when you go out there and you're there to talk about infrastructure, I mean, I make this point all the time, right? A lot of reporters, they don't want to talk about infrastructure. They don't want to talk about tax cuts. They don't want to talk about a lot of substance. They prefer this, what has become very divisive, but it's also the story of the day very much, which is to attack Donald Trump. And so they went into the attack mode, but he had to have known that was coming.
Of course, and what's so great about our president, I think, is that he's someone who has extensive experience being involved in the media well before he was involved in politics. So he knows what to expect from the media. I think he definitely expected many of the questions that he received today.
But was it worth doing, Madison, today, on a day when you want to talk about infrastructure? And here we are talking about, once again, whether, you know, it was enough of a condemnation of Charlottesville.
I think those are questions he needed to answer. These are things that have, you know, to many seem to have been left unanswered. And I think he came out very clear about the way he felt about his statements, which I think he needed to do. I wish he would have received more questions on infrastructure, but the reality is reporters are going to ask what they want to ask. Going back to his statement before his answers or questions and answers, you know, he gave a strong statement about what he's doing with infrastructure, and I think he made so many valid points. You know, why take 20 years to do something we can do in 2? Why spend $100 to do something we can do with $5?
Yeah, and by the way, that was pretty good when he held up that flow chart, right? Where he said, look at all the different steps that you have to go through, and he pointed to one highway project that took 17 years. I mean, Christy, will the Democrats be willing to work with him on infrastructure so that we're not going through that many steps to get stuff done?
That's a great question, Trish, but President Trump had said that he doesn't think he needs to work with Democrats on that, which again just speaks to the fact that he is self-sabotaging at every turn. This is one issue where, yes, if he had started with this in January, he could have, I believe, gotten potentially a lot of Democratic support, because fixing our crumbling roads and bridges is something that Democrats do, in fact, care about.
Do you buy that, Heather? Do you think that the Democrats, I mean, and by the way, if they were willing to do it before, they should still be willing to do it now.
But he started with a Muslim ban. He didn't start with infrastructure.
This is better for our economy.
Yeah, I'm trying, without sparking another, you know, fight or debate here, Christie's point is perhaps he should have started with that in the legislative process versus health care or tax reform. But to your point, Trish, okay, fine. But is there any way, Christy, that Democrats can get on board? He's pleasing you with infrastructure spending. He's pleasing you with middle American tax cuts. What will it take just to give the man a chance?
Please, can we talk about the infrastructure plan for a second? His plan is he wants to spend $1 trillion over the next 10 years, which frankly I think is great. That's actually what it will take to fix all of our crumbling roads and bridges and, you know, sewage systems and things like that. However, the way he wants to do it is $200 million of federal government spending and $800 million of private investment.
So you want more federal government spending?
Well, I just think it's deeply unrealistic to think he's going to pass the collection plan at the White House.
We have $20 trillion of debt. We're talking about the debt ceiling coming next month. I mean, Fred Smith of FedEx, can you spare $1 billion? Oh, and can you get 800 of your friends to do the same? It's just, it's not going to happen.
Well, you know, but that said, there are a lot of private companies out there that would like to be in on this, right? So they actually, surprisingly enough, Christy, they'll put money to work because they want this opportunity. But you have to go out there and take advantage of it and not say the federal government's going to do all the spending all the time. Anyway, it's so good to see all of you. Very good discussion. Madison, Heather, Christy, and Caitlin.